Hello viewers, I hope everyone is doing well. Today we are going to look at the setup of an entry-level budget router. Here you can see the TP-Link Archer C24, which is an AC750 dual-band router. And here is the Archer C54, which is an AC1200 dual-band router. Both of these are dual-band routers. The main difference lies in the speed, AC750 versus AC1200. Because of this, there is just a very small price difference between them. As you can see here, the price for the C54 model is approximately $18 USD, and the C24 model is priced around $15.50 USD. So for just a few dollars difference, you get slightly different specs. You can see the key features here: multi-mode 3-in-1, compact and mountable design. Due to these minor speed differences, the price varies slightly. However, the interface for both routers is exactly the same. The operation and settings inside are identical. So let's see how to configure these two routers. Once we log in, we see an interface like this asking us to choose our connection mode. First, we have the internet connection type. First is static IP. If your ISP has provided you with a static IP connection, you will select this. You will need to enter the information provided by your ISP, such as IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and primary and secondary DNS. Next is dynamic IP. This is commonly used when connecting router to router via cable, or if your ISP provides a dynamic IP. In this case, no configuration is needed, just plug and play. Below that, you see MAC clone. Many ISPs bind the connection to a specific MAC address. If you change your router, the internet might not work. If that happens, you can manually enter your previous router's MAC address here in the Custom MAC Address field and save it. Or you can select Clone Current Device MAC to copy the MAC address of the computer you are currently using. Next, we have the most popular connection type, PPPoE, which is like a dial-up connection. For this, your ISP will provide you with a username and password. Simply enter them here to connect. The L2PTP and PPTP protocols are generally used for VPN connections, or if you're setting this up as a secondary router with specific VPN requirements. For these, you will also need a username, password, and server information. You can choose between dynamic or static IP for these connections as well. Once you have configured the internet connection, click on Network Map. Here you can see if your internet is connected, your WAN IP address, and your current status. Now let's look at the wireless setup. You can see the wireless status here. Let's go to the Wireless tab to configure the Wi-Fi. First, we see the 2.4 GHz settings. If you want to turn off the 2.4 GHz radio, simply uncheck the Enable box. To keep it on, leave it checked as default. If you want to hide your Wi-Fi name so no one can search for it, check the Hide SSID box. Here, in the Network Name SSID field, you can change the name of your Wi-Fi to whatever you prefer. For security, the default WPA/WPA2 Personal is the best option. Below that, enter your desired Wi-Fi password. The same process applies to the 5 GHz network. You can set a separate name and password for the 5 GHz band here. Below, you will find the guest network settings. If you want to create a separate network for guests on 2.4 GHz, enable it here. You can name it something like Guest so users know it is for them. You can also assign a password or select No Security if you want an open network for easy access. Similarly, you can enable a guest network on 5 GHz, setting a distinct name and security preference as well. Once wireless is set up, let's move to the Advanced tab. Here, under Operation Mode, we see this router can be used in 3 different ways. Currently, we are in Router mode, which is the standard setup we just configured. Next is Access Point mode. As shown in the diagram, you connect an Ethernet cable from your main router or switch to this device to broadcast Wi-Fi. In this mode, routing functions are disabled. Finally, range extender mode. This allows you to connect to your main router wirelessly without any cables to boost the signal and extend coverage to dead zones. Now let's go to network. Here in the status section, you can see your connection details, your IP address, subnet mask, and gateway. Scrolling down, you can see the LAN status, including the MAC address and the local IP address of the router. You can also check if the DHCP server is enabled and view the IP address pool. If we click on Internet, we can change our connection type, static, dynamic, or PPPoE, just like we saw in the quick setup. Here you have the MAC clone option again. Below that, ensure NAT is enabled. You can manually set the internet port negotiation speed to 100 megabits per second full duplex if needed, but leaving it on auto negotiation is usually best so it matches your ISP's connection automatically. Under LAN settings, you can configure your local network. You can change the router's LAN IP address and subnet mask here if you want to customize your internal network. Next is IPTV/VLAN. If your ISP provides IPTV service via a set-top box using a VLAN ID, you can configure it here. There are preset profiles for different countries, but if yours isn't listed, select Custom. In Custom mode, you can manually enter the VLAN ID and priority for Internet, VoIP services, and IPTV services provided by your ISP. You can then assign specific LAN ports for those services, for example, assigning LAN 2 or 3 specifically for your IPTV box. Here is the multicast setting, IGMP snooping. You can enable or disable this based on your network needs, useful for streaming applications. Under DHCP server, you can define the range of IP addresses the router assigns to devices. For example, if you only want to allow 10 devices, you can set the pool from 192.168.0.100 to 110. Using address reservation is useful for devices like IoT gadgets, cameras, or a NAS. You can force the router to always give the same IP address to a specific device. Click Add, select the connected device from the list, and save. Now that device's MAC address is tied to that specific IP. DHCP client list shows you exactly which devices are currently connected, their assigned IPs, and how long they have been connected. Dynamic DNS allows you to access your router remotely even if you have a dynamic public IP. This router supports providers like DynDNS and NoIP. Static routing is an advanced feature. If you need to define specific paths for data packets between different networks, you can add those rules here. Moving to wireless settings. This gives you more control than the basic setup. For 2.4 GHz, you can see the version, encryption type, and password. Transmit power is important. If you need maximum coverage, set it to high. If you are only using it in a single room and want to reduce interference or power, you can set it to low or middle. For channel, leaving it on auto is fine. However, if you are experiencing interference, you can manually select a specific channel, like 1, 6, or 11, and set the channel width to 40 MHz for better throughput. The same settings apply to 5 GHz. You can set transmit power to high and set the channel width to 80 MHz to get the maximum speed possible. In the guest network section, there's an important option, guest permissions. If you check Allow guests to access your local network, guests can see your shared files, printers, or NAS. Usually, you want to keep this disabled for security. Wireless schedule lets you automatically turn off the Wi-Fi at specific times. This is great for offices or shops that close at night, or for parental control. Click Add and select the time range, e.g. 10 p.m. to 7 p.m., and the days you want the Wi-Fi to be off. WPS Wi-Fi Protected Setup. I strongly suggest keeping this off unless you are connecting a mesh network. Leaving WPS on can make your router vulnerable to hacking. In additional settings, options like Short GI and WMM are enabled by default. It's best to leave these as they are. Under NAT forwarding, we have port forwarding. If you have a public IP and need to access a local device, like a web server, FTP server, or CCTV from the internet, you use this. Click Add, select the device IP, enter the internal and external ports, and choose the protocol, TCP or UDP. Port triggering is similar but dynamic. It opens ports for incoming traffic only when a specific outgoing event happens, useful for gaming or specific applications. UNPN allows devices like gaming consoles to automatically open the ports they need. You can see the list of active UNPN services here. DMZ, Demilitarized Zone, enabling this for a specific device exposes it completely to the internet, bypassing the firewall. Use this with caution. Parental controls allow you to restrict internet access for specific family members. Click Add to create a profile, name it, e.g. kids, then add keywords for blocked content, for example, typing Facebook to block it. You can then set time limits, how many hours they can be online per day, and bedtime, which shuts off their access during sleeping hours. QoS, Quality of Service, lets you prioritize bandwidth. You can enter your total upload and download speeds here. Then you can toggle priority for specific devices, like your gaming PC or streaming TV, to ensure they always get enough speed, or limit the bandwidth for other devices. Under Security, keep the SPI firewall enabled. This protects your network from basic threats. Access Control lets you create a blacklist to block specific devices or a whitelist to allow only specific devices. If you want to block a user, select Blacklist, click Add, choose their device, and save. They will be kicked off the network. IP and MAC binding prevents ARP spoofing attacks by linking an IP address strictly to a MAC address. ALG settings allow specific protocols like FTP or VPN pass-throughs. Keep these default unless you have connection issues with those services. This router supports IPv6. Most modern ISPs are now providing IPv6. To set it up, enable IPv6 and select Router Mode. If your ISP supports it, it will usually connect automatically via pass-through or PPPoE v6. Finally, the System tab. Firmware Upgrade lets you update the router. Important, always download the correct firmware for your specific hardware version from the TP-Link website before uploading it here. Backup and Restore allows you to save your current configuration file. If you ever reset the router, you can simply upload this file to restore all your settings. Factory Default Restore will wipe all settings and return the router to the state it was in when you bought it. Administration is where you change the router's login password. It's highly recommended to change the default admin password to something secure. Remote Management allows you to access this admin panel from the internet. If you enable this, you must set a specific port, like 8080, and ideally restrict it to a specific external IP for security. System Log keeps a record of router activities and errors, which is useful for troubleshooting connection issues. Diagnostics lets you run ping or traceroute tests directly from the router to check if you are reaching the internet or specific websites. Time and Language lets you set the interface language and your time zone. It's usually best to let it sync automatically via NTP servers. Reboot lets you restart the router remotely. You can also set a reboot schedule. For example, you can have the router automatically restart every week at 3 a.m. to clear its memory and keep it running smoothly. Lastly, LED control. If the router lights disturb your sleep at night, you can enable night mode. You can set a time period, e.g. 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.,
during which the router's LED lights will turn off completely while the internet stays on. So, that covers the complete configuration of the TP-Link Archer C24 and C54. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.